How much do girls talk about the sex life here in the United States or their relationships in general?
I think that we talk about feelings and relationships way more than we talk about sex. Like, honestly, like, I mean.
Hey guys, it's Courtney from Wonder in English. And
Hi.
I'm here with my really, really good friend, Lana. And we're going to be talking about relationships today and what it's like to date an American. So before we get into that, Lana, will you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Of course. I know Courtney from way back. We've been friends for almost 10 years now. And after high school, we went our separate ways. I went to UCF in Orlando, and I absolutely loved it. I'm an English major, writing and rhetoric. So basically, yeah, I know. So basically, like technical type writing, I can write grants, speeches. Right now, I'm kind of working on writing manuals and guides for troubleshooting stuff for like Navy planes. So that's awesome. But yeah, so I really love English and communication and language. I think it's super fascinating. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this interview.
So again, we're going to be talking about what it's like to date an American today. So I called in reinforcements because I actually have never technically dated officially an American. I've had two boyfriends. One was Mexican and the other was French Swiss. So Lana's going to be talking about what it's like to date an American. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like to date an international person, and we'll combine the knowledge to see where the differences are. So Lana, how many relationships have you had?
I have had 4 solid official relationships, and all of them have been with Americans, as you said.
Yeah. Actually, she dated my brother for, how long was it, 5 years?
He was my first boyfriend. Yeah, I dated him for 5 years. So,
yeah.
But we were friends first.
Yeah. So, and actually, I feel like people ask me about that occasionally if it ever comes up in topic. And I feel like we got closer because of the fact that they dated. It was like she became a sister. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about PDA, which is public displays of affection. And that can vary widely within a relationship in the United States.
And nationalities.
And nationalities, exactly. So Lana's going to give us her personal experience.
Okay, so even though I've said I've had 4 official boyfriends, there was one of them where it was more off and on. So it was a little more unofficial in parts than it was in others. So during the parts where we weren't really officially together, he would be a little bit more hesitant to have public displays of affection, especially when it was around friends, I think, because it was like confusing for them and he didn't want to explain certain things. So I think it definitely varies within relationships here and your status of what your relationship is. With all my other official boyfriends, we were like clearly together. We had no problem displaying it. I mean, obviously to some extent. I personally don't like being too much on top of each other. I think that's annoying, but there's definitely a limit. But I do enjoy it, and I think it's nice to see other people do as well if they're holding hands or something. I think it's sweet. So yeah, I personally like it, but I definitely see where it can be confusing for some people if it's not official or if you don't really know your status.
And I think that that's an important point that she's making is status. So for whatever reason in the United States, the status part of a relationship is very important and also very unclear. So for whatever reason, we don't really like to define things in the very beginning of a relationship. Sometimes we call this just talking. And that can mean a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. So I'll be like, oh, we're hanging out or we're talking. So what does that mean to you, Lana, if I told you that?
If you say you guys are hanging out, that would mean to me that you're very casually like hooking up or very casually seeing each other, not exclusively. So seeing other people as well. Just very casual.
And what can you define hooking up? Like, what does hooking up mean?
Hooking up means like just doing anything sexual, any type of thing when you guys are like not really officially together, like just kind of friends with benefits, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that is also an important thing to note. So the status can often be ambiguous, and so can hooking up.
Yeah.
So the word hooking up can mean anything from a kiss all the way to full-blown sex. It could be anything. So if I say, I hooked up with someone yesterday, you guys have no idea what I actually did. And I think that we kind of like that it's ambiguous, because I think people in the United States tend to be very personal. We like our privacy, and we want to talk about things sometimes without actually getting into all of the details. So maybe I don't want to get into some very specific details about my sex life, but I want my friend to know that something is going on between me and some guy.
That was kind of hard when I was dating her brother. We couldn't really have much like conversations about anything, and it was like not annoying, but just like, I don't know, kind of inconvenient at times, because it was in high school, like when I wanted to talk to my friends about things, you know, and like I needed maybe advice or whatever. It's so funny. But yeah, so there were times obviously like where you want to hide things maybe more, or you feel like you can't share things obviously for certain reasons, which, you know, I get and I respect. But yeah, so it all depends on your boundaries and what you feel like sharing.
So an interesting spin-off of that is, especially for the guys watching, how much do girls talk about the sex life here in the United States, or their relationships in general?
I think that we talk about feelings and relationships way more than we talk about sex. Like, honestly, like, I mean, it's really, I personally don't really talk about like sex that much. I definitely talk about like where I'm at emotionally or stuff like that, because that's what I like need help on, or that's what I'm like seeking advice on usually. So that's what I'll share.
Yeah, I think that it depends from person to person how open you feel to talking about stuff like that. I definitely know that it's fun when you get a group of girls and you're laughing and talking about it. Like, what do you like? What don't you like?
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. But I don't feel like people talk about it very often. Like, we don't focus on it because that's not that important to us well, it's important, but it's a small part of a very big picture. So, yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So we were talking before again about status. So can we go into more of the status? So we talked about hooking up, which we know is just nothing formal. And then what about dating or seeing someone or talking? Are there differences between these words? Are there nuances there?
I honestly, with the more and more that the years go on, I would say yes. It's getting a lot more like kind of confusing, honestly.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
So I think that everyone kind of has their own definitions of it. I still kind of like use my own definitions, what it means to me. I'm not like gonna base it on like what everyone else thinks it means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think that it kind of depends on like who you are with too. And I think it's really important that you guys clear that up right away, because you don't want to be on separate pages when it comes to that. That's like, you know, getting too much playing with your emotions, and that's not good. So I think you definitely need to kind of talk about that right away. And as much as you may not want to have the talk about like feelings and emotions, like it could just be casual and just say like, hey, like, you know, where do we stand? Like, what are you looking for? You know, stuff like that. So there are ways to have these talks without having it be such like a turmoil and such a burden. But yeah, I think that it's important to kind of establish that.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're younger, you tend not to have those conversations as soon as you do when you're older. Mm-hmm. It's like the older you get, the less bullshit you can handle. So you're just like, okay, let's figure out, like she said, where we stand as far as the status of our relationship. let's put a label on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or we don't put
Or
a label
not.
on it, but
Yeah.
we at least talk about the fact that we're not putting a label on it.
Yeah.
Having a discussion, which is kind of confusing, but just at least having that discussion so things are out in the air and just out in the open and clear. Let's talk about splitting the bills, which is really common here in the United States. When you're with your friends, you go to a dinner and you ask for separate checks instead of paying all together. So what does that mean for relationships?
I think it's really important that you set your boundaries right away. I always personally like to do separate checks until we know we're really fully together, just because over here in America, at least, it does tend to have some connotations or some meanings along with it. If he pays for you, then maybe he kind of expects that you guys are together, or, you know, I don't know. It all depends on the kind of guy he is, but just from my experiences, I always find it safer to pay your own bill and like take care of yourself until you know for sure that you can share it together.
I agree. If you're not interested in a relationship, I think it can be kind of confusing for the guy if you keep going out with him and he keeps paying, because that would be a date for somebody who is, you know, dating officially someone. So if someone is your boyfriend, then it's pretty common for them to pay for you, or you even pay for them.
Yeah, I like paying for the guy too. I have no problem with that.
But I think it means something when one person pays for the other.
Yeah.
Unless you're just really good friends and you've been friends forever. But if you're not sure where you guys stand, then having the guy pay for you might make things a little bit more confusing.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about what it's like to bring somebody home to meet your parents. How serious is that? Does that vary from person to person? And what does it mean?
I do take it a little more seriously, I would say, especially seeing as how I have had 4 official relationships, but I don't know, that's still not like that many. But my parents did meet all of the guys that I've been with after a while at least. But anyone that was unofficial, I really didn't even like talk about them with my parents, or, you know, even really brought them up unless like I had to, or if I was asked or something. But yeah, I think that in a certain time frame, maybe like a few weeks or like a month, then it would maybe be more appropriate for them to meet your parents. With the boy that I'm with now, I actually didn't end up meeting his parents until like 5 months into our relationship, which honestly is crazy. And
Is that a lot?
Yeah, I think that's a lot. Like, honestly, we just never really got the chance to meet, and we were never really at his house much. He would always like come over to me or like be on my side of town. So I just never really met his parents right away. So I don't know. I always thought that was weird though. We got along once we did, and it was fine. And we even said like, I can't believe I didn't meet you before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a long time personally.
Yeah. I think a lot of it depends on convenience. Like if that person's family lives in California and you live in Florida, that's across the country, you're probably not going to see them for a while.
Yeah.
And that's normal. I think for me, yeah, I tended to meet the families late, but that was because they lived in different countries, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like a point you made is very true. If someone is just a friend that you're hooking up with, which we call friends with benefits, I don't normally tell my family about people like that. They might know because I'm more open with my mom now, but I don't really discuss it at length at all. Maybe they'll know about their existence, and that's about it. And
but it's like don't ask, don't tell. I mean, unless I'm visibly bothered by something, my mom is like just kind of lets me do my own thing, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She doesn't really ask.
Yeah. And if you're home a lot, like for example, I'm living at home right now, then at that point, obviously those people might come around and they might see them, and you know, it's okay, it's whatever. Maybe in other cultures that's a really big deal. So for you to bring someone home, that might mean something. But for my household, it's like pretty chill here. But I think every house has different kinds of families. My parents are really, really relaxed, and then other parents are very traditional. So talking about being traditional versus relaxed, what do you think about living with someone before you get married?
Oh, I think it's super important that you need to live with someone. I think it's super important that you need to live by yourself before you live with someone. I think that you really need to just kind of ease your way into it. I don't know. Well, especially for me, I didn't grow up with any siblings, so I don't really know what it's like to live with another person for a long time who's like my age. Living with my parents was no big deal, but living with someone like close in age, I've never done that before. Besides in college. But yeah, I think that it's important to live by yourself first too, to have that experience. And then also living together before you get married, definitely. I mean, you kind of want to test how it goes. What if you guys get married and you just don't mesh well at home? I mean, you can be a fine couple, but what if the guy is really messy and the girl is really clean, or vice versa. It just little things like that where your lifestyle at home is very important for it to match the other person's.
Yeah, all those little things make a really big difference in the quality of your relationship too. And it's not those little things particularly, it's actually how you deal with those little things, like how you talk about it, because you're going to have differences, and it's how you handle the differences that matters, that shows you how resilient you will be. And we actually have a friend that's about to get married. Well, she's about to get engaged.
And she doesn't know.
And she doesn't know.
Don't
but
tell her.
At the time of this video release, she will be engaged. Yeah. And that's really exciting.
Oh my God.
But she actually wouldn't move in with her boyfriend until she was married. So I think that that's a big difference here in the United States, is that there's people on every part of the spectrum. There's traditional, there's not traditional, there's, what would you call that? Liberal. And it often depends on your religion too, because she's Christian and she doesn't think that it's a good idea to live with someone until after they're married because of her Christian values. And for someone like Lon and I feel like it's important for us to live together before we get married, so that we know how that interaction is going to be on a day-to-day basis. So you know what you're signing up for.
Yeah, that's true. I really forgot the term living in sin with, people who are religious. And that's a real thing. I mean, it's really looked down upon to live with someone before you're married. And I've never really looked at that way. My parents were never married. And it was actually their 38th anniversary the other week. So they were together for 38 years, but they were never married, and they had a super strong relationship, much stronger than most people's that I knew.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not a weird concept to live with someone and not be married. And my parents, I mean, they're not really conservative, but they're, conservative enough to where it's not like they're just crazy hippies that just, do their own thing. No, I mean, they definitely have really good morals and values and everything. They just decided to never get married. And to me, it's really made no difference. Except for, I don't know, I really do want to live with the person before I get married, though. Yeah. If I get married, even. I don't even know if I want to get married.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm open to not getting married as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, who knows what life has in store?
Yeah.
It's not really something that I've grown up dreaming about, which a lot of girls, I think, do.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know about dreaming about getting married as it is just as much as the wedding itself.
Yeah, a lot of girls dream about the wedding. Yeah. And I don't think I've really thought about it, but everyone has their own thing.
I think you should just listen to your heart. If you are happy with who you're with and you don't feel the need to, get married and just, you're just base it on your love, that's totally fine. But if you want to be married and have the world know that you guys are together legally, I totally get that too. So yeah.
And what do you think the average age of getting married is here?
It seems to be going back down. I actually read something online and it said it was 28 or 29, but I personally thought it was getting younger. And that, in the generations before us, my grandparents and everything, they got married really young, 18. That's not really nowadays, but I do think that people 23 to 25 are getting married more. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just our social circle, because
Mm-hmm.
I also read that it was around age 28. But I do notice that a lot of people from our high school that we went to are getting married and having kids. And, I'm 25.
Yeah, me too. I'm 25.
Oh, yeah, you just turned 25.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by now, honestly, personally, I couldn't even picture myself being married at all or having kids. That's so foreign to me. I'm just now starting in my career. I'm really just now kind of starting my whole life. So if I do get married and have kids, it's definitely going to be in my 30s. but I don't know. My mom had me when she was 38, and I think that's a little too old. But she's 62 now, and she literally looks 45. Like she looks great, and she's a really young spirit. But to me, having a kid that old is just a little bit too old. I think maybe like 32 is a good age to start like really settling down. But I don't know. I feel like I was a bit of a late bloomer. I graduated college in 5 years instead of 4, which isn't a huge deal. But after that, I moved back home, and I worked in like places at home. So I do feel like I was a little bit of a late bloomer there, but that's okay. I mean, everyone has their own path, and that's totally fine. But I am seeing more and more like people that I follow on Instagram are all getting engaged. Like I feel like it's crazy. Following me. Yeah. But I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I maybe am changing my mind on it. Like I used to be super anti like wedding. It was too like binding for me. I didn't want to be that much like, I don't know.
It's a big commitment.
It's a huge commitment.
It's something that you really have to think about.
But now, just with my like past few relationships and like seeing the guys that I've been with, it's kind of changing my mind to where I could potentially see myself being with one person if I do find the right person, you know, and like that's really important. So I don't know. I used to think that, oh, there can't be only one person for me. There's a whole big world out there. That's crazy. But now I do see that there could be one person for you, because I think like the more you go through, the closer the bond is, and it's just like you can't compare it sometimes. Like
and I think there are multiple people out there, but you can make it work with one person if you're constantly working together and adapting. I think that's the most important part, is that the relationship is always evolving and you're trying to meet each other's changing needs. So
and that you learn from it. I mean, people change, I change, my boyfriend changes, like, you know, you change, we all are changing, and that's nothing to like be upset about, or you know, as long as you're changing for the better. But it's something to be mindful of. I mean, you always have to kind of just go with the flow and use everything as a learning experience.
Yeah. And I think that if anything that this conversation should be showing you is that there's really no stereotype or one size fits all for American dating system. I mean, we get married at different times. We date at different times. Sometimes it's official, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. Some people like this, some people like that. Maybe you want to move in, maybe you don't. So basically, all we want to do is give a general sense of what it's like to grow up here and date in the United States, but also let you guys know that everybody is different. Every situation is different. And yeah. Any final comments?
No, I mean, this was really fun, and I hope you guys got something from it. I wish we could cover a little bit more topics, but yeah, the camera is gonna die soon.
Yeah.
Maybe next time. Yeah.
So basically, this is all from our personal experience. So, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. And if you've seen the idiom video before this, then you'll know exactly what that means.
Cool.
So, all right, thank you so much. Say goodbye to Lana.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Have a really great day. Don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and the notification bell. And I'll see you next week. Bye.